Hey guys, my name is Sahara. Welcome to the True Crime channel. Let's get into it. Tonight we're talking about James Oliver Huberty. He was born in 1942 in Kenton, Ohio, in a very religious family. In 1950, his father bought a house in the countryside, but his mother didn't want to go. She ended up abandoning her family. James was only 8 years old at the time. She just didn't want to live in a farm, and instead she went to Arizona to do sidewalk preaching. This deeply affected James. On top of that, he contracted polio when he was 3. He had to wear leg braces for a while, and that left him with a sort of limp for the rest of his life. And he was often the target of bullies, not only because of his limp, but also because of his, religious background, and also the fact that he was very introvert. He was kind of a loner, and people called him weird and odd. In 1962, he goes to college to study sociology, but he changes his mind and he decided to get a license for embalming instead. He got his license at the Pittsburgh Institute of Mortuary Science, and that's where he met Edna. In 1965, he marries Edna Markland, and shortly after, he starts working for a funeral home still in Kenton, Ohio. But the fact that he was so introverted, that caused him to very often have minor arguments with his superiors, and he ends up giving up embalming for welding. Now, I did wonder if the fact that he was working at a funeral home for a while, if that sort of desensitized him to death and dead bodies, and if that played any part in what would happen next. As a welder, he was considered a reliable worker. He would gladly take overtime. That made him earn promotions. He was actually doing very well for himself. He ended up making, like today's equivalent would be 130K per year, which is quite a lot of money, right? In 1972 and 1974, he would have 2 daughters with Edna, Zelia and Cassandra. It is reported that the household had a history of violence. James was said to frequently punch and slap his daughters. Punch, yeah. Once Edna filed a complaint against her husband, saying that he messed up her jaw. It is also said that to calm her husband's fits of rage, she would read him tarot cards and pretend to, predict his future. It did have a calming effect at times. James would actually comply with whatever she was foreseeing in his future, and he would follow her recommendations. Edna would later say that she was always trying to not agitate her husband. She was always trying to, calm him down, not get on his nerves. She did try to get him to seek professional help, but she said that he just refused for a long time. Everybody who knew James, they knew of his temper. They knew he was violent, aggressive. He would always get into an argument with anybody for over the smallest thing. He was known to behave strangely, to make unsettling comments, just, behave in a very odd manner in general. One time they were invited to a birthday party with their daughters. I think it was some kid's birthday party. And one of the parents, I think it was James, but I found different sources saying that it was Edna and it was James. I believe it was James. He encouraged one of his daughters to punch another girl. And when she did, the mother of that girl who was attacked, she went to the Huberty family. She just wanted an explanation. And one of the parents, and I'm pretty sure it was James, he took out his pistol and he threatened her, which is insane. A birthday party for kids, and he just does that. The weirdest thing is that the police was called, but no charges were pressed against them, and they actually were able to keep the pistol. Now, that same pistol was later used by James to shoot down his own dog because he had a neighbor who was complaining about their dog. The Huberty family had a dog, and their neighbor was complaining that the dog was barking too loud and damaging property, and James just shot down his own dog with his 9mm pistol. After a few years of working as a welder, he was let go. Now, again, I found different sources saying different things. One of them said that he had a motorcycle accident, which left him with a twitch in his left arm. But other sources say that he actually had the accident after he was let go, and that didn't have anything to do with it. Some say as well that it was because of his personality, and maybe it was a bit of both. One of his former colleagues from when he was a welder reported that he heard James say that if he wasn't able to provide for his family anymore, he would commit suicide and take everyone with him. End quote. Edna actually also reported hearing James say similar comments, and apparently he also attempted suicide, but she stopped him. She caught him with the pistol in his mouth, and he said that he was hearing voices. James tried in vain to find another job, but he wasn't successful for a while. He then decided to move to Tijuana, Mexico. But they only stayed there for about 3 months, and he decided to just go back to the US. But they didn't go back to Ohio, they relocated to San Diego. In San Diego, he found a job as a security agent, but again, his employer dismissed him for poor work performance and physical instability. The day before the events took place, James called a mental health center. He was looking for help. He knew something was wrong with him. He was very much aware of having mental issues. And he was actually expecting to be called back within a few hours. He sat by his phone and he waited and waited. The center never called back for two reasons. The first is they actually misspelled his name. I don't know if that's relevant. I just kept seeing that information that they misspelled his name, and that was one of the reasons that they didn't call back. I mean, even if you don't spell the name right, you still have the phone number, because if you say you call someone back, you do take the phone number. I really don't think it was a relevant fact, but it was just out there, like in so many articles that I read. So I should mention it, I guess. But the actual main reason why they didn't call him back was because on the phone he just was very calm, and it didn't seem like the matter was urgent. So the lady on the phone, she just planned to call him the next day. At that mental health center, apparently the way they work is like they will call you back within a few hours if the matter is urgent, but if it doesn't seem like it's urgent, they give themselves like 48 hours to call you back. But obviously James didn't know that. It is reported that sometime that day, he said to his wife that society had its chance. And that's what leads us to the next day, the day of the events. James and his family go to the zoo of San Diego. They spend some time there. Afterwards, they go to McDonald's to eat, but a different McDonald's. This one was in Claremont. After which they go home, and James is getting ready to go back out, and his wife is asking him, like, where are you going? And he says, hunting humans. He also turned to one of his daughters and he said, goodbye, I'm not coming back. When he left his house, there was a witness who saw him with two guns, and he called the police. But sadly, he gave the wrong address to the police, and they were never able to find him. So then Hubert drives to the McDonald's on San Isidro Boulevard. He is armed with a 9mm Uzi submachine, a 12-gauge Winchester pump-action shotgun, and a 9mm Browning HB semi-automatic pistol. It is said that for each weapon he was carrying 100 rounds of ammunition. So much noise. There is just so much noise in this city. So he enters the McDonald's at 3:56, and it is said that there was about 45 people in it. At first, he's aiming his gun at an employee, and the assistant manager is there, and he's like, watch out, this guy is going to shoot you. But he doesn't do anything, so people just think it's a stupid joke. Then he fires at the ceiling, and people see that he is not joking. He shoots the manager, not the assistant manager, the manager. Just one shot, and he was dead within minutes. He then proceeds to shoot the assistant manager, and he yells, everybody on the ground. Obviously, I don't think people were waiting for him to shout that. I think just with the first, shots, people were already, screaming and panicking and yelling and trying to hide. Apparently, he also made a racist comment, but it was not confirmed by other people, other witnesses, and the police determined his motive to not have been racial. The chief of police later said that he just didn't like anybody. After he shot the manager and the assistant manager, there was a brave customer who came up to him. He was being brave, and he tried to talk him out of shooting people and killing more people, but he shot him 14 times, and he said, shut up, while this brave customer was screaming in pain. People were obviously trying to hide anywhere they could, and some people were actually shielding other people, like, their child or, family members. There was this pregnant woman who was with an 8-month-old baby and with another child, and he shot the pregnant woman 48 times. He also shot the baby, who was 8 months old, in the back just once, and the baby died. There was also this couple who were with their son and their son's friend, and each parent was shielding, one of the kids, and he shot the mother, and she was shielding her son. He shot both of them, and sadly they died. He also shot the father and the friend, but he shot them in different parts of their bodies, and they ended up surviving. And then Huberty just proceeded to target another family that he also noticed was, shielding, some other family members. I felt like every time he saw someone trying to protect someone else, he would target them. He was shooting at people that were inside the restaurant, but he also shot at people that were outside of the restaurant. There was this couple and their daughter who were walking by the restaurant, and they saw the shattered glass. They actually thought it was being renovated, and they mistook James for a construction worker. So they just like walked by as if nothing, because they didn't know. And James started shooting at them. They gave their baby to a passerby. She was with her husband, and they just like gave her the baby, like, please take him to the hospital to save her life. It was a baby girl. And the couple was like on the ground, like, like, what the fuck is happening? And this woman, the passerby, her husband, he stayed with that couple that was on the floor. He was like trying to help them. The mother was shot in the eye, and she was permanently blinded, and she was also shot in the hand, and she was also permanently paralyzed on that hand. But luckily, her husband and her baby, they were okay. All the passersby were shot. There was this sadly famous picture of this kid who was on his bike. So there was actually this group of 3 kids on their bikes. It was Joshua, Omar, and David. Joshua was shot to the back, arm, and leg. David was shot multiple times on his back. Omar was shot to the head multiple times, and 2 of them sadly died. And Joshua, he was actually wounded, and he was on the floor, and the way he survived is he just played dead. He was obviously in a lot of pain, but he just, like, I don't know, his instinct just told him to play dead, and that's how he survived. Joshua later said that he remembers watching David on the ground and he threw up. Joshua is the only one who made it, and the way he survived was he just played dead. My neighbor's recently had a baby. I don't know if you can hear him. He's crying right now. He's been crying all day. I think he's teething. Bless him. Anyway, again, there was other people who were outside and who also got shot. Huberty was actually inside the McDonald's. Like, he was shooting from inside the McDonald's. There was this elderly couple that were going inside the McDonald's. Again, they didn't notice what was going on in there. So the old man opens the door for his wife, and she gets shot in the head, like, straight away. She collapses to the ground, and this poor man he's holding her, he's wiping the blood from her face, and he's cursing at James. And James just comes to the door and he shots him dead. During the shooting, some survivors remember that James was actually there was this counter, and they remember that he was going to a portable radio that was there, and he was listening in. And at first, they thought he was listening in for, police announcement, or, the news saying that, like what's going on at that McDonald's. But he actually was, going through the channels, and he put some music on and he started to dance. Yeah, that's pretty fucked up. He then goes to the kitchen, and he sees that there's some employees hiding there, the 6 of them. And he yells, "Oh, there's more. You're trying to hide from me." And out of the 6 that are there, he's shooting at them, and 3 die. And there's 2 that manage to escape, like they try to run away, but he's chasing after them and he shoots them as well. There's 1 that survived, but sadly the other one didn't make it. The shooting lasted for 77 minutes. That is, can you believe being in a McDonald's, like being stuck in there, and this is happening, this is going on for over an hour, and you're just, I don't know. There was actually a documentary that was made that was titled 77 Minutes. Now, when the police was called by passersby and people inside the McDonald's, they actually were given the wrong address of McDonald's. Again, wrong address. Like, this is a recurrent thing in this case. They go to the wrong McDonald's, and that just wasted them 10 precious minutes. And apparently, the police procedure in those situations is that they actually have to wait for a SWAT team to intervene. They can't really intervene in like such special circumstances. They're not equipped and they're not trained to do that. But during those 10 precious minutes that they wasted going to another location, they could have actually just, locked down the area 10 minutes earlier, and that could have prevented the deaths of, the elderly couple, the three kids on their bikes, and the couple that was injured, the couple with their baby. Even the SWAT team took so long to come because apparently they were stuck in San Diego traffic, if you can believe that. And James was actually shot by a sniper to the aorta. He died within like a few minutes. Now, there was a lot of blame put on the police and the SWAT team for the delay and for the way they handled the situation, but police were just saying that they were following standard procedures. They are not equipped and trained to handle such crazy situations. At the time, it's the deadliest massacre in the US, with 21 victims, 20 on site, one that died the next day at hospital. 20 were injured and 10 were physically not harmed at all. Out of the 21 victims, there was 4 who were killed outside of the restaurant. And most people who died, it was due to a gunshot wound to the head. At least one, or sometimes it was multiple gunshot wounds to the head. Most of the victims were Mexican or Mexican Americans because of the location of the McDonald's. Obviously, as you know, San Diego is on the border with Mexico. But again, the chief of police insisted on the fact that the motive was not racial at all. McDonald's temporarily suspended their advertising after the events, and competitor Burger King did the same thing as an act of solidarity, which is pretty nice. But right after this tragic incident happens, McDonald's intention was for that place to go back to usual, like just go back to being a normal McDonald's. And it did for a while, but that same year they just decided that it was not a good idea. They donated the land to the city of San Diego, and the city decided to build a memorial to the victims. Some families actually tried to sue McDonald's, but their case was appealed. Apparently, the reason they were suing is because, just like safety and security. I just guess it made absolutely no sense. Maybe it did at the time. Like, if you're a family member of a victim, you just feel so angry and you want to sue someone. You can't blame McDonald's for someone crazy barging in and shooting at people, I guess. I don't know. What do you think? In 1986, Edna, James's wife, she actually also sued McDonald's, and she also sued her husband's former boss when he was a welder. She said, that's not funny, but it's just crazy. She claimed that her husband's mind was poisoned by working with heavy metals when he was a welder, and that does make sense. But she also said that his mind was also poisoned by some substance that was in the chicken McNuggets. So she basically said, my husband got crazy because of chicken nuggets. Obviously, she didn't win. I don't even think she made it to trial. It was just so ludicrous. When they did James's autopsy, they actually did find high levels of lead and other substances. So she was right in the fact that he was poisoned by heavy metals. But again, he wasn't a welder for his entire life. People said that he was weird and making crazy comments and getting into fights for most of his life. The events affected the police in the sense that they said they felt inadequate and they felt like they were not equipped in training or firearms to deal with such threats. So there were 2 major changes that were introduced in the San Diego police force, which was the increase of special police unit training and some officers given high-power firearms. And psychiatric counseling was also made available for police officers who ever had to deal with such a traumatizing event. James's wife and daughters received so many death threats after the events. They did receive counseling for about a year, and they later had to relocate and change their names. When James's father was interviewed, he said, "Yesterday was the worst day of my life. I feel so sorry for these people." And that concludes the sad, tragic story of the McDonald's shooting of the city of San Diego in 1984. If you're interested, there's a movie called Bloody Wednesday that was highly inspired by these events. It was made in 1988. It's a really crappy movie. But just in case you're interested, I mean, just you should know that it's out there and it's actually on YouTube. Like the full movie is on YouTube. I saw some clips. It just watch it if you want, I guess. Now, I just want 15 seconds of your time to introduce a random object. So this is going to be the sort of routine that I'm going to have in my videos. I'm just going to introduce for just 15 seconds a random item that I have in my home that I really, really love. And tonight it's this ukulele. It's so pretty. I bought it for, it was only 35 euros when I bought it at the time. I've had it for 2 years. It's real, like it's not a toy, it's a real instrument. I'm gonna put the link in the description box, and now it's only 27 euros. It was from a German website. I guess shipping is free in Europe because it was free for me, and it's a German website. So I'm guessing if it's free for France, it's probably free all over Europe. And it's just so pretty. What do you think? So we have reached the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. This is my first video, and I was kind of nervous. I would love to hear whatever feedback you would have to give me, and I will see you very soon, hopefully. Please comment, like, subscribe. You know the drill. I will see you soon. Bye.